Hello, can anyone hear me?
Hello.
Ah, hello, Joe.
Hello, Amelia. Let me put a slide up or something. Actually, why don't you put up your page and share
Oh,
that?
okay. Also, I think I am the host
Hmm.
somehow.
I'm still trying to figure out Zoom. It seems like whoever logs in for it told me I had another meeting open and I totally didn't, but I eventually figured it was weird. Yeah.
Let me bring up this. I'm keep on having to switch in between like my remote desktop and then my actual desktop, and I keep on getting very discombobulated, surprisingly, about it.
I make the background completely different
That
on
would
the desktop.
probably be helpful.
A different color. Actually, I think my one at work, although with the UDW that doesn't really work, but just something outrageous like put a photo up there on your home screen that or something, make it shocking pink or yeah,
So I think
you get that after a while.
okay, yeah. Let's see. I think it's already recording too. I don't know if we want to. I think it just started automatically recording when I entered the room.
Yeah, I think so too.
If that's okay with you. I mean, I can pause it for now, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I think it's
Sound
going.
good?
I hope so.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. And I'm guessing we'll have people joining us as we go. We wanted to kind of have this webinar after about a week of, I'm sure, what has been a lot of craziness. And we're going to kind of cover three things in this session today. The first thing we're going to talk about is actually self-care. And then the second thing, and really the bulk of what we're going to be doing today, is we just want to hear from you as you've gone through this week. What are some specific questions you might have, or some things you might need from us? Is it that you need maybe professional development because that's what you're working on? Or do you find that there's a lot of questions you're getting from your community members and you'd like to help them as well? And so we wanted to hear from you so that we design something that's good for you and works for you and helps you in doing your jobs during this time. And then the last piece of this that we'll talk about is actually the remote piece. As Joe mentioned when she was advertising this particular webinar, many of us have been working remotely for a long time, and so we can kind of share some of our tips and hear from you on maybe any questions you might have about that process. So feel free to use the chat. You are also able to unmute yourselves by just clicking on the microphone, and that's fine too, if you want to ask questions and so forth. Amelia, since you have your COVID-19 page open,
Mhm.
would you mind scrolling down to the bottom? And I want to show them the article, that Brain Science of Fear, that Hildy Gottlieb wrote.
Yeah. So this is the general COVID-19 resources for libraries page, and I'll drop this link into the chat box if anyone wants to look at that. And then the article, this one.
Yeah. And I wanted to share this with you. Kara Orban shared it with many of us at the State Library, and I actually really enjoy Hildy Gottlieb. She is CEO of Creating the Future. But I think most of us, when we read this article, were like, oh, this is perfectly normal that our brains are a little bit foggy. There you go, I just proved it. And that is because the brain's, of course, trained to be on survival mode. And so certain things shut down, and we are literally, in many cases in situations like this, working with a part of our brain that's designed to run from tigers and other things. And it's really hard to connect into the prefrontal cortex parts of our brain, which is where creativity and ideas and so forth live. And so if you haven't seen this article, I actually recommend reading it. I think you'll probably feel a little bit reassured to know that all of us are kind of struggling a bit. And in the article, Hildy also goes through some just tips of ways that you can kind of get out of that survival panic mode and maybe into that prefrontal cortex part of your brain. And when we met as a group to kind of talk about this website chat, I volunteered to go ahead and share a practice that I have used that can really help with calming the survival brain. And Hildy actually references it in this article. And in essence, what we tend to do when we're really anxious is we're kind of like running around with all these to-dos. And so we forget to actually do breathing, like real breathing, deep breathing that actually calms us down and gets us out of that flight, fight, fear kind of mode that we're in right now. And so we're going to start our webinar with this, and then we'll move into actually talking about taking kind of control of what we can and doing what we can to better serve our patrons and ourselves. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is, if you are sitting, to sit in a way where you can feel your feet resting on the floor. If you're standing, that's great. What I'm going to do is have you actually focus on the connection of your feet on the floor, probably through a pair of shoes. And I just want you to just take a few moments and just feel what it feels like to feel the floor on your feet or on your shoes. Is it hard surface? Is it a soft surface? Can you feel all of the points of your feet connecting to the floor? And as you do that, just kind of allow your brains to stop. What this does is it kind of pulls you down into your body, so to speak, helps you get out of that survival mode. And I just want you to kind of see if you can feel all the parts of the bottom of your foot connecting with your shoe or the floor. And then, if you will, I'm just going to have you kind of roll your shoulders back with a straight spine. And we are literally going to take 3 really deep belly breaths, because what we're doing, a lot of us, is we're breathing from our chest. We're not actually breathing from our diaphragm. And so it's going to be kind of quiet here as I take kind of 3 deep breaths, and I hope you'll join me. And so you just want to breathe all the way in, feel your belly kind of moving out, in and out as you do it. So ready? Here we go. In, out. 2 more times. Throughout the day, to just kind of remember to take 3 deep breaths, to literally kind of breathe and come back to just whatever you're doing, you know, whether it's a sitting or surface. It's a way of just kind of making your brain go, oh, okay, maybe I need to stop being in paranoid panic mode and breathe for a second here. There's a lot of good stuff out there about self-care, and I encourage you to kind of take a look at it through these times and share it actually with your colleagues and with your community members, because a lot of us are going through a lot of fear and anxiety and uncertainty. So with that, I actually want to switch over to what we can do and how we can help. And Kara is going to lead this part of the website chat. And so feel free, of course, to use chat or to unmute yourselves. But Kara, are you ready to kind of lead people through a discussion about providing library services in these times?
Hello. Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, good. That's great. Yes, so I'd really like to hear from you all as you are making changes to the services that you provide in your communities, and you're anticipating what programs might be disrupted in the coming weeks. What services are you envisioning needing to shift to virtual services that your community would appreciate? If you're thinking about summer reading, or you're thinking about end of the school year, whatever is happening in the next couple of months, what do you need? We're seeing a lot of activity in Montana Library to Go right now. We're trying to make some changes to make that service more valuable to existing members, but also extending access to people who are not currently existing members or looking for partnerships with schools, so that we can create as much access as possible to some of those materials. And So that's one existing service that we have, and we're certainly interested in ideas for how to make that more robust. But if you have other thoughts, services, e-resources, we are compiling a list of e-resources that are being made freely available right now. And I know that we're not the only people making a list like that, but what other services or ideas do you have in mind that you're looking for ways to
I have a question before the
facilitate?
services start kind of coming out. I don't know how long to plan out. I don't know if anybody does, but I guess I'd like to get a sense of how far out people are planning right now. Is that okay? Does that hijack your conversation?
No, not at all. I would turn that question over to the audience and ask what you're thinking about.
So I've seen some articles discussing at least 8 weeks for quarantine to work effectively, and then other dates have mentioned all the way into June or farther out. So in terms of services, the law library is not planning anything extra at the moment, but I would anticipate planning for a couple of months. Sorry to be alarmist.
Oh, I don't think you're being alarmist, Stefan. This is Joe speaking, and there are a lot of good comments in the chat box that we probably should share from Heather, Heather Johnstone. I believe we as librarians can make a difference in providing mental health resources. We're going to see an increase in depression, mental health issues, probably suicide as a result of social isolation and economic distress. I'm going to capture that, Heather. One of our Summer Leadership Institute attendees, her project was on reducing teen suicide. She's been studying this quite a bit. I can certainly ask her to share some of her findings and resources. I will follow up on that. Let's see. I can also tell you Joey from Whitefish, we're currently planning to be closed until March 30th. However, we'll reassess at that time, and I have a feeling it will be a bit longer. So it sounds like everybody might be just working kind of week to week at this point. And Katie Jones, much of my planning thus far has been day to day, responding to needs from staff and students. But yes, it's a great question. And from Raya J, we are planning on working remotely as long as schools are closed. So hopefully back open sometime in April. And then from Ronan, Montana Nurses Association is asking the governor to require everyone to stay home. And in Bozeman, Kit Stevenson is saying we're closed until further notice. And this is coming from city officials in Bozeman. Of course, Gallatin County is being hit pretty hard and early on this issue. And then from Polson, looking at this week, figuring we will be closed longer, possibly through April 11th, which will be the end of our school summer break. We need to be closed if the schools are closed. Worried a bit about summer reading, but doing the planning anyway. Great, figure all programs will be canceled through April. And then Susie from Great Falls, we can also help direct people to community resources. We're working with United Way and Montana 211. If you don't know about Montana 211, oh Susie, we've been talking about circling back to do some informational webinars about 211, and maybe this is a good time for us to do that. Anyway, we're looking at posting information on our front doors for people who don't have online access. I think that's a great idea. Make your library's front door a bulletin board for your community. And then Kathy, to everyone, I'm telling patrons they can have items for 60 days, extending out so nobody has to worry about a late fine or getting things back to the library right away. From Brenda, closed this week following the school's closure. with board conversation this week about, let's see, Belgrade is currently closed to the public for 6 weeks as of last Tuesday. And in Lewistown, closed for 2 weeks starting March 17th, board meeting March 26th, and will reassess. And Heather Johnstone closed until further notice. Joy Bridwell out at Rocky Boy is saying our library is still open for 4 hours a day just to students, answering questions to those that are in quarantine by email, social media, phone, also handing out iPads and laptops. And from Lori, Dillon Public Library is closed to some public. We will possibly be closed till April 3rd. All programs are canceled, but we are allowing one person at a time to come in and file for unemployment. Let's see, quite a few more. Susie from Great Falls also says we are also doing curbside service and stocking little free libraries across the city. And also from Whitefish, staff on duty and answering phones, also providing curbside service. We have information on services. And then Livingston Park County closed until further notice. And then back at Rocky Boy, Joy says we have postponed all of our community events and are creating arts and crafts kits to pass out to make up for the event that was canceled this week. And Laura from Missoula Public Library says closed until further notice. Thank you for sharing. Back to you, Kara.
So does that, I don't know who asked the question, but does that help get a sense of what people are generally anticipating and planning for? Yes. Great. Connie. Hi, Connie. So if we're thinking that this may extend into the summertime, Amelia, and I don't want to put Amelia on the spot here. Amelia sent me a couple of resources that are geared towards virtual summer reading, reinforcing summer reading programs. And we were talking about whether or not that would be something that libraries would want to collaboratively go in on as a group, and we thought maybe it was too soon to tell. But things like that would be an example of something that I would like to know about ahead of time, so that if you would like some assistance in coordinating a group subscription or seeking some options that are affordable or freely available, then that would be great to know.
Yeah, and Kara, if you don't mind me popping in for a bit, on the summer reading side, there has been a little bit of communication between the state reps about summer reading, but I think at the moment, since most of the state reps are state library employees, I think a lot of them are prioritizing other things besides summer reading at the moment. But there have already been a couple of emails being like, if this does last longer, what are people generally thinking about for virtual summer reading programs and the like. And so people had sent over information about, I think, Beanstack and Read Squared, which are online tracking software, summer reading program type things. And I know that a couple of libraries in Montana are already using that, but I think it's really only like 2 or 3 people so far. So not much else has come out about summer reading so far. I think as things sort of settle a little bit more, people will have a little bit more bandwidth to think about that, and more information will be forthcoming. But for right now, it just seems like things are on pause generally. And one other thing in terms of like planning, I don't want to be alarmist either, but I did just talk with my friend who is living in South Korea, who, as you all probably know, South Korea has actually had like a pretty good response to COVID-19 so far. And I believe the schools have been closed since January, and they are still closed at this moment. And I think they will still continue to be closed for possibly the next couple weeks or a month. So it might be a thing where if it opens and people can do things in person, then we can pivot easily to that, but it might be good to start planning just for non-in-person things for a while. Again, no idea how this will actually, how things will turn out, but just an idea.
And Amelia, there is a note from Laura Coate, or a question about, is anyone doing or considering online story times for kids through their websites? And just a quick response from Cindy Kristen that Imagine-If has already posted, and she's also looking at it. Belgrade posted our first one. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff in the chat box there. Imagine-If has a on their Facebook page or YouTube channel, I should say. Great Falls Public Library is working on it. Lewistown's on Facebook. Some are using Facebook Live. Lots of stuff coming into the chat box.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to try and actually grab all these links and put them in this COVID guide so that people can just click on here and find them. You know, that's really awesome that people are already doing them and providing them. And, you know, I'm sure all these people who said that they're doing these already would not mind if you just publicized their story times to your community as well. If, you know, you're not comfortable with streaming or don't have the resources to set up a virtual thing, you can totally just, and not just, you know, the librarians here, there's a ton of stuff that's actually being produced online now that you can promote to your patrons and have people participate in. So
Lori said that she's pre-recording for her radio station in Dillon. And Heather said they had a great lot of views of their first Facebook Live story hour last Friday.
that is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Connie says to everyone subscribe to their YouTube, please. So everyone hit follow on the Imagine-If channel. And just to highlight a couple of things on the COVID-19 resources, there are there's some information here on virtual story times. So you can see here, there is a virtual story times resource list from Amigos Library Services. There's the recording of the webinar that they did on virtual story times. I had listed the Fayetteville Public Library does regular live streamed storytime offerings. Some publishers have temporary open licenses for virtual story times. And then actually, if you go up to here and you click on Google Calendar of live stream educational events, there is a ton of stuff there for like, yeah, just like online streaming. I think Mo Willems is doing lunchtime doodles, which was very relaxing. And I actually spent a lot of time watching those videos. But yeah, there's some other stuff here. And then Susie has a really good point. I'm very concerned about how the pandemic is exacerbating the divide between those with and without resources. I love all the online things. What is anyone doing for families who don't have internet access? So that's a really, really good question. And I think that's something some companies I know are trying to provide on like access to the internet. I think Spectrum is having hotspots that they're giving out or something like that. So we're looking a little bit more into that and seeing what's available there. But yes, that is a big concern because if you have internet and you can access those things, that's great. But if you don't, then that can be really hard. Kara posted a Google Doc with a bunch of e-resources that are freely available during the quarantine, so you can definitely add things. Stefan said, I heard some libraries are doing story time on the radio, which is really cool. And then Kathy, I think this is Kathy from Butte, maybe? We will be putting together goodie bags with easy, fun lessons from Villiers. Okay, sorry. So yeah, putting together some sort of kit or something for people to do would possibly be a way of addressing that. But if you have any other ideas to Susie's question, I would be really interested in hearing what you all have been doing, because I know that a lot of people are thinking about that.
This is Jen Burnell. And I do know, this doesn't help with a device issue, not having a computer, not having a device, but I do know that some communities are getting free internet through Spectrum right now. Charter has been offering free internet services to those who have not currently been subscribers, and low and reduced costs for those who are. And I think there are other communities with our local tele cooperatives that are doing something similar, so that may be helpful, just as a heads up. And is just a quick lesson on Zoom. If you haven't noticed, at the bottom of your screen there is a participants list, and you can see who's talking by the microphone moving up and down next to their name. So you might want to check that out, and you can pop the chat out so it's open on a separate screen. But since we're all new to Zoom, that might be helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. I did put a couple things up here. Ann Booth, our economic development consultant who's been working with us, sent this to me this morning. Triangle Communications is setting up community Wi-Fi. And I had mislabeled it originally as Eastern Montana, but is actually Central and North Central Montana, I believe, are the regions. So they are setting up those programs. And then Tracy just put something in the chat box on how to take advantage of Charter and Spectrum internet offers. So you can take a look at those links as well.
And it makes me, this is Joe, I'm just wondering, is there a need for libraries to provide hotspots, or are you keeping your Wi-Fi active longer, or how are we trying to fill this widening digital gap? And there's anything we can do at the state library to help with that? So just hearing from Polson in response to that, their Wi-Fi is available outside their building 24/7, and so is Whitefish. And Heather Johnstone out in Forsyth said we're keeping our Wi-Fi available the same hours as we would be if we were open. Joyce says they have their Wi-Fi from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Valir is always on. And Brenda is saying, so it sounds like if you maybe getting the word out there that you could drive up to a library and access their Wi-Fi from your car. So looks like most people have it open at least a good part of the day. And oh, that's good. Susie says they've actually moved Wi-Fi so it projects further outside the building. So people parked in the parking lot can get the signal 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. This might be worth collecting, Tracy, and sharing this information statewide somewhere. What do you think? I'm not hearing you, Tracy. Can you check your mute?
Oh, sorry. I had my mic on mute. Yes, I am hoping to, it looks like there's a way I can grab the chat, and I want to do that and see if we can figure out how to post this so people know.
There's an ellipses on the right hand side of the chat box where you can click more and save chat.
Thanks, Kara.
I see that Kit Stevenson from Bozeman has a question. Any suggestions for chat services for our reference librarians working at home? So if anyone wants to, or has a system that they're using already, I'm not sure how many people already offered chat-in reference services at their library.
Maybe the easiest one to get started with is Google Hangouts, because it's free and open, and all you need is a Google account to utilize it, and you can send messages to anyone in that group. And if you had an account name, Bozeman Reference or something like that, or whatever library name and reference, then people could chat with that. It's a possibility.
There is a question for Abby and Polson, I think from Starla in Hot Springs, asking, why are your police asking for limited Wi-Fi? And then there's another question from Chloe. The Mansfield Library has changed our reference schedule, so 2 librarians are logged into the chat at once instead of just 1. So yeah, I bet you're getting more traffic that way instead of through regular channels. And Abby said, we've had a limit for a long time because of problems with people hanging around the library late into the night. So Susie says that police and neighbors also asked the Great Falls Public Library to turn off our Wi-Fi at 11 p.m. at night. We were having trouble with people hanging out in the alley and library park at night. And they've been doing that for several years. So. Any other questions or ideas regarding reference, how you guys are handling reference scheduling, other services? I guess back to Kara's question too about anything that might be worth looking into ahead of time, not to like pull the trigger on anything, but just to get some information in case we need it. If you guys think of anything.
I have added a tab to that spreadsheet to collect ideas if you want to think on that, and if anything occurs to you that, oh, we're going to have to move this to online, or thinking about your summer plans, if you could add those to this spreadsheet, that would be really helpful, because we're looking to you to understand what your needs are going to be in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and add the spreadsheet again to the chat box, and you can see the virtual services needed tab here that you can put information in. And then Carmen from Bozeman asked, Chloe, what service is Mansfield using? And Chloe said, we're using Zendesk Chat. So I'm guessing that's a specific like chat reference software. So you guys can look that up and see. And Connie says, we'll need help understanding the financial forecasts coming out and how a recession will affect our funding in the new fiscal year. Yes, I think that's all something that we're wondering. Just as a heads up, let's see. I've started a new guide on economic development resources for libraries and communities, and I am going to be working with Anne, our economic development consultant, about adding to this resource guide. And so when I had initially put, right now there's not very much in here, and it's mostly for, I think, community members and business owners and the like. But Connie, you have a good point about how libraries themselves will need to adjust and adapt to the financial impacts. And so I think we'll probably add things in here as well. So I think I've told Anne about this already, and she's starting to do some research, and we're meeting tomorrow, and we're hoping to have some more information in the coming weeks. So similar to the general COVID guide, I'll put this link into the chat box. Check back here, because we will be updating things here that you can share with your staff and then also with your general community, because I think everyone will be affected by this.
And I was also curious, I know Lori said she's allowing people to come into the library and file for unemployment. Is anyone else trying to help those Montanans who might now find themselves out without a job? How are you providing support or connecting them with the resources? And then we should come back to Abby's question. But I wondered if anyone has other ways that they're helping people who may be unemployed at the moment.
And aside on the unemployment issue, those of you who know and love our Gemma, she's working with, that's her job now, is working on the technical support for that, as those systems for filing unemployment have been completely overrun in Montana. They're made to handle, I think someone told me they're made to handle 70 or 80 applications at once, and of course they're getting hundreds at once. So encourage your patrons to come early in the day to fill out those, to get started, or try reaching them in off hours or over the weekend. Might be a good, just a tip until we get through this like surge of applications.
Yeah, and Mitch says, I'm considering, Mitch from Livingston, I'm considering using our large meeting room for this purpose, hooking my laptop up to the projector and filling out forms for people as they sit on the other side of the room. So this would be by appointment. So still observing social distancing rules, but providing much needed assistance, I am sure. And yeah, as Joe mentioned, if you do, you can see here, there's some information here about how to file for unemployment. And yes, there is a notification on their website saying that the system is overwhelmed. So just make sure to let people know about that. There were a couple other questions in the chat, one from Abby and Polson. What is everyone doing for their staff if they are not all working in the building? Do they get special leave? What about part-time workers who don't have any work that they can do from home? So that's a really good question. And then Connie from Kalispell said, I'm not sure how to reach out to our patrons experiencing homelessness, and it's on her list to contact stakeholders in that area this week. And Connie, this might not be helpful at all, but that's a really good point about people who use the library and now can't. And I'm also just curious what else is available to them in the community. I'm guessing probably everything that they normally go to is closed, and the already meager list of resources are not available. Joey from Whitefish says our staff is working in-house. Otherwise, they will be using sick leave, vacation, and comp time as per City of Whitefish policy. And then Susie from Great Falls says, in terms of staff, we have the majority of staff working at the library, practicing social distancing. Some people are at home. If they can telecommute, they have to be approved by HR. Frontline staff have to take sick leave. If they don't have that, they can use vacation leave. If they're out of both, they are put on leave without pay. They get to keep health insurance and are being encouraged to file for unemployment. We don't have anyone out of leave yet, but if this continues, we will. The city has discontinued sick leave donations. And then Laura from Missoula is saying, Missoula County is providing county employees with 2 weeks administrative leave specifically for COVID-19 and opening a bank for sick/vacation leave for donations to employees who don't have enough. Connie asks, how does OSHA come into play if we can't offer safe working environments, doesn't that mean administrative leave? And then Connie also said our county isn't saying that, but I wish they would. And I don't know what OSHA has said about COVID stuff, or if people are just deciding sort of on a local basis. I guess also another question that kind of came up earlier was what people are doing if they don't have any work that they can do from home. And so something that state library staff were talking about was professional development, and whether or not it'd be helpful for us to increase the amount of professional development that we're offering in the next few weeks, which would be a valid project for staff and employees to participate in. We have tons of ideas, but we also don't want to overwhelm you if you have different priorities at the moment. So that's something that we can definitely offer and possibly help with in terms of providing projects for you all to give to staff. But if you have any thoughts on that, please do let us know. Abby from Polson says, there's a link somewhere that I came across on an official government page with lots of COVID-19 info for OSHA and other things. Sorry, I don't remember how I found it, but good to know that it exists. So maybe afterwards you can try and, oh, Pam has put it into the chat box, so I'm going to click on that. Guidance on preparing workplaces for COVID-19. And then Abby said, yes, she got it from the Department of Labor and Industry under Workplace Safety and Health. In terms of PD opportunities, Plains would appreciate that because all of us are so new. Laura says more options are better than less. Cindy from Bozeman says, I love the idea of professional development. And then Rhea from Stillwater, I'm the only staff currently working from home, and she's getting full pay for 14 days. Then I believe it goes to 2/3 pay for up to 90 days. I've been doing professional development, programming plans, and social media updates from home. So yes, we are prepared to plan more professional development options. If you feel strongly about that, please let us know. If you think we should work on other things, please also let us know. If you have specific topics you'd like us to address, please let us know.
This is Joe. Yes, reiterating, we have some ideas, and we certainly will ramp up. We generally ramp down our online professional development around MLA time, but with no one being able to get their professional development that way. And we are open, waiting to hear from MLA or how much they are planning themselves to put online. There was some discussion among the board from that. So trying to stay in touch with them on that. So anyway, watch for more webinars. We'll try to keep, a couple a week during this time. I think we can probably pull that off. And of course, we've got a lot recorded as well. And there's lots of other people doing webinars these days. So we'll have a good collection for you.
Yes. Abby said collection management credits would be great. So we'll keep that in mind. Connie says we're using Microsoft Teams to make sure everyone can work remotely if needed. Right now, a staggered schedule for folks who want to come in, lots of materials, projects, CE, et cetera, et cetera. One quick thing before I forget, or actually, I don't know if we have this scheduled later on. Mitch, I believe, had mentioned board meetings earlier. And we do have some resources available to people for hosting board meetings online, and state library staff offering to help host those if you don't have Zoom licenses or GoToMeeting licenses or things like that. So we can talk about that in a little bit, but just as a reminder to us to remember to say that later on once this conversation wraps up. And Susie asked, are there cataloging projects available? We aren't in the MSC yet, but wondered about cleaning up the records, adding series information, etc. Connie said I sent Carrie and Joe a list of services. Abby says we're going to use GoToMeeting's free 14-day trial for a board meeting this Thursday. We'll see how it goes. And then Connie says, what is the protocol around public participation in the virtual board meetings?
Great.
And so, Connie, most of the online meeting groups have kind of opened it up so you can seat up to 100 people. And so what you would do is you'd want to post the link on your agenda, and the State Library already does that. So if you want to see an example, you can look at the State Library Commission agenda. So a really great example of how to do that. If people didn't have a way of attending online, then I would encourage offering them the option of emailing you their comments or what they would like to have stated, and then you could read that into the meeting so that their comments are shared as well. And if they do participate, it would be the same as if they were in the room. So when there was public comment, they could use chat or they could use their mic to participate.
And then Kit from Bozeman has said that their board meetings have been canceled until further notice. So this is coming from the city requirements. So depending on your local government regulations, that might also be the case for you all too.
This actually seems like maybe a good time to shift it over to Pam. She was going to talk about kind of some of this online meeting stuff and maybe also how we can support staff as well. Pam, are you ready to do that?
I'm here, and I think people are kind of familiar with most of the online meeting options that are out there. Certainly, we as state library staff, are available to host any meetings because we do have some licenses. There are, like, I know Google Hangouts are probably something you could try for like informal things. GoToMeeting is one that you might look at. I didn't see that GoToMeeting, they had a free trial. So if you only want to do like a meeting, you have 14 days to try it. Zoom seemed like it had a free option that you could also sign up for. So you could do that yourselves to have some meetings that way. So those are like the popular. And Skype, this weekend, I was telling Tracy, I was on Skype all day yesterday with a bunch of different groups, and they're not going to be official meetings, I don't think, but if you want to do things, you can use Skype. It's a little cumbersome because you would have to set up an account, you have to invite people, and not everybody is using Skype, but that's something that you certainly could do just for communicating with some of your coworkers, just to keep in touch, because we have found that to be pretty helpful, or just to be able to keep in touch with each other. So a little bit about remote work, because not everybody is familiar with that. Sorry, I don't know if I can do anything to help hear me, Cindy. I don't know if that makes it any better. I could
Pam, real quick, I'm just going to mute everybody, and then if you can unmute yourself, we can try that.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Does that? I was just talking away some more. Does that help a little bit?
I think that's a little bit better.
Okay, I will just project and pretend like I'm talking to everybody up in Whitefish and far away instead of just here in my room. So as far as working from home or working remotely, that's kind of a new experience for a lot of people. And I know there was a really good link on Amelia's page. If you want to go back to your COVID page there, Amelia, you did have a really good link about working from home, and there were some good tips on there. It was I think it was a PC World magazine article, so there were some ads in there, and they were recommending specific equipment. But I will also send this other link to Amelia to put on there about working from home that I did from the library marketing person. I did post it somewhere else and I forget where it was. I'll put this one in the chat box too. You know, the important thing is, oops, that's the wrong one, sorry. You know, make a routine for yourself so that clearly I can't talk and chat at the same time. The important thing is, you know, pretend like you are going to work. Get up, get dressed, do your usual routine. Just because you're at home, make sure you're still training your brain to be, okay, I'm at work now. So that at the end of the day, you can leave your work, and just because you're in the same building at home doesn't mean you're still at work. You need to, your brain has to be able to shift itself one way or another from work and not work. So I will send Amelia this other link to working remotely when we're done talking here. Because it is really tempting to, you know, stay in your jammies all day when you're home or in your sweatpants. But really, if you just kind of pretend like you're going to work, it's really helpful to have a little bit better routine. And also, if you can kind of come up with a space where you can say, okay, this is my workspace. It's really helpful. It kind of helps your brain get into work mode and not work mode when you leave that space. It's awkward sometimes if you don't have an extra room in your house, and not everybody does, so you're not going to be able to set up a whole office. But if you can set up a space for yourself, then you can feel like, yes, I am at work now. And when I leave that space, now I'm not at work and I'm back with the family. Do other people have things that they're doing now that they find helpful? I'd like to hear what other people are doing in this adjustment. Or do you have questions about or tips for people? I think that would be helpful.
I'm just going to add in, Pam, this is Joe, that we do use Microsoft Teams as our instant messaging service. It kind of stands in for a kind of water cooler space for us to have informal conversations back and forth. And we do have a group of all the remote staff. So if the people who are remote, a lot of times working remotely, you encounter some technology issue and you think you're the only one that is having that issue, and that's probably almost never true. So it's good to have some way to stay in touch and make sure everybody has everybody's phone numbers, and that you know that during these hours you can just call people, that you know you're working when you're home. And a lot of times people don't want to call you because you're at home, but you're working at home. So make sure everybody has phone numbers so they can reach out to each other with a text or a phone call to just stay in touch. And Christine's got a great idea: facing a wall instead of a window. It feels more like work. That's a good tip.
That is a good tip, actually. Yeah, because I find myself looking out the window and then I start daydreaming, and then it's like, okay, now I'm not working. So yeah, closing yourself in a little bit so you're not distracted, eliminating those distractions. Leave your personal phone, you know, somewhere else in the other room, so maybe you're not so likely to be distracted by personal phone calls. That could be helpful if that works for you. So yeah, Teams is helpful for us.
Yeah, Aaron is asking, Aaron from Blackfeet Community College is asking if Teams is accessible on mobile devices. If you mean ADA accessible, I'm not sure. But if you mean, is it pretty easy to use on your mobile phone? Yes, it is pretty easy to use on your mobile phone once you get it set up. And we have an enterprise license at the state library and so I can reach anybody in the state system on Teams, but it doesn't seem to work very well, like engaging with people outside of our state enterprise system. So in that case, we used to use Google Hangouts before we had Teams, Erin, and we all liked that just fine. And that's, of course, open to anybody.
Right, and several people have commented, you know, you're sitting for a long period, so you do need to get up and walk around every so often. You know, you're not tied into the chair that you are sitting at, and you're not locked into your laptop or whatever you're using. It's important to take a break, get up, walk, go outside. The weather is getting better now, so go outside, walk around your house for 5 minutes and get some fresh air. That's a really helpful thing too, because you know you're not stuck facing your wall all the time. You don't have to feel like you're locked in. So I think it's important to take care of yourself. The other thing that I was going to share was there's another link that I have posted somewhere too about self-care. And you really do need to take care of yourself. So you need to take a break, and you need to step away. Sometimes you have to step away from all the social postings that are out there that are just constantly reminding you of all sorts of, you know, crazy things, or you just hear it all the time. So it's a good idea to just step away from the computer and take care of yourself. You know, go do something fun that you want to do. Have a chat with somebody else so that you're just not constantly focusing on this kind of crisis, which raises your stress level. And like Tracy said when we first start, you know, like every so often, just remind yourself, sit down, take some deep breaths, because I find myself doing that quite a bit during the day. Is like, oh my gosh, I feel a little stressed, so let's just relax a little bit. So I would encourage that too.
I also put a comment in the chat. Slack is another great option for team messaging if you're looking for another free option, and can help organize work in online spaces as well. And also just a reminder that, you know, you're not going to instantly be as productive as you might have been in your normal workspace, and that is totally fine. And you should be generous to yourself and kind to yourself about your productivity, because it's not related to you as a person and your self-worth. And it takes a lot of time to adjust. And that's, I mean, it's taken me some time to adjust to working from home. And so don't feel bad because you're not doing as much as you might under normal circumstances. I think that's totally understandable. And just don't be too hard on yourself.
Exactly. And we are still getting used to this whole Zoom thing. And I know I have accidentally sent just Stefan a few links, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just send them to you, Stefan, so ignore those. So now I have put the work from home link that I was talking about earlier in the chat box. That has some really good tips in it. And then there is also this one about the self-care. This should be the self-care. Yeah, and even though it's geared towards social media staff who according to this, are under, you know, a lot of stress to get all the media and the marketing out there, it had some really good tips of just how to take care of yourself. It's not a very long post, but it has some good ideas in it, and I would like everyone to kind of keep those in mind too. And I think the important thing is just to reach out to everybody, like we have been talking about. Reach out to somebody if you have a question or something, you don't know how to manage something, or you feel like, oh my gosh, this is really bothering me. It's probably bothering somebody else, or someone else has the same situation, and it really helps to talk about it. So we are all here to just kind of listen to everybody else too. And there are some good tips in the chat. Although I don't know if I really can, you know, approve of Mitch's drink beer while working, but, you know, whatever works.
I just want to follow up on that though, because even though I know Mitch is always the snarkiest one in the room, he wins that award. But when I was working on my master's online, we would often schedule a virtual happy hour for our team to just kind of sit back and be online and just be kind of chatting and talk about our project that we're working on and about our crazy lives and everything. And so I don't think it's such a crazy idea, Mitch. I think, especially for your staff, to keep everybody kind of feeling connected, schedule a Skype or a
virtual happy hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One class I had, we called it a virtual hot tub, and I think it's actually a known strategy for online learning to try to get the cohort to really coalesce and have that collegial experience. So I'm sure it would work.
I think that's a great idea. Another way to have connection, a little virtual lunch hour visit if you want to, or certainly a virtual happy hour sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Don't forget to have a little fun.
Exactly. That's pretty much all I have to talk about these kind of sides of things.
Well, thank you, Pam. I appreciate it, and appreciate all the feedback from everyone. I see we're at about 12:59. You gave us lots of good ideas, so we'll try to come back with some specific things, both professional development, resources, and there were some questions you had about staffing and the probable upcoming recession that I think we should definitely take a look at and explore further. Would it be helpful for us to have another one of these, maybe focused on one or two of these topics, just to give you an opportunity to kind of chat with each other and with us and share what we've learned? That is one last question we had for everyone. All right. Great. We will plan on doing that then, and we'll focus on one or two of the topics that you have brought up so that we can kind of continue to help you through this. So thank you, everyone, for attending. I don't know, Amelia, Kara, Pam, or Joe, if you have anything you'd like to add, please do so.
I just wanted to say that I am feeling so much happier and more inspired after hearing all the amazing things that you're all doing in your communities and the innovative ways that you're coming up with solutions. It's really heartening. There's a silver lining in this terrible situation. It's all the good that we're seeing emerging from all of you good people. So thank you for your good work.
And this is Joe, and I just want to say, I spent a number of years as a first responder and as an EMT and a firefighter and volunteer firefighter, and got lots of training in disaster preparedness and all of that. But now that we're in the middle of a disaster, you guys are doing, it's so important to keep our social fabric well woven together, and that's our jobs. And you guys are doing a very important work right now, just trying to figure this out. And so we're just going to be carrying on. And so thank you for being here today. And I just love this group of people.
I think it's just important to remember that we are all in this together. I keep hearing that over and over, and we are all here for each other. So don't hesitate to reach out to anybody whenever you need something.
Huge
All right,
virtual
thanks,
hugs all around. Yes.
Virtual hugs. Yes.
So we'll see you next Monday, and certainly between now and then too. Stay safe and healthy. Right. Thanks, Laura.
All right, take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye,
Amelia,
everybody.
for doing the recording. And
Yeah.
you can get that posted, can you?